back to where we left off. So this exercise I've sort of divided into two parts. The first part is where I'm going to have you ask yourself if you think you know what your purpose is already. That's the focus of the first part. And the second part is where I will share a method with you, which I think is a very creative, very sort of it's an interesting way to ask yourself certain questions and arrive at your purpose, at discovering your purpose. And I'm sharing this because this is the method I used when I first started off. So if you have your pen and paper ready, just a couple of questions here that I will have you answer. So would you say you are consciously aware of your purpose? And if that reminds you of Instagram stories, the poll, that's because that was intentionally done. I told you I'm going to try and be as relatable as possible. So it's a very straightforward question, right? So you either know that you either know what your purpose is or you don't, right? At this point, at least. So it's basically a yes or no question. So what I want you to do is, if for each of you who think you know what your purpose is, I want you to write it down. Just one simple sentence, nothing fancy. Literally, like, my purpose is XYZ. And if you don't know what your purpose is, that's totally fine. I was exactly where you are till hardly a couple of years ago. So that's your main what you're going to be doing this exercise. And the sort of follow-up question to that is, if you actually wrote down something, meaning if you know what your purpose is, and if you wrote it down, just ask yourself if you're already living that purpose, or if you're still, if you're not there yet, basically. So you could be, there's sort of three main categories here. Either you don't know what your purpose is, or you know what your purpose is, but you're not living it just yet. And third one is, you know what it is, and you're already well on your path to living it. And there's no, by the way, there's no one, like, one is not better than the other. This is literally just for our own knowledge, for yourself to, once you go through the next part of the exercise, this is for you to sort of compare the two later on and understand for yourself, did it match, did it not match? So there's no, I don't want you to think that, if I don't know my purpose, that means there's something lacking. Absolutely not. This is just purely out of curiosity for yourself. This is not a, there's no judgment, there's no competition. So I'll give you about a minute or two if you want to write down what you think your purpose is. All right, I hope most of you have it down. Again, it doesn't have to be a long formal, sentence, just basic couple of points that you have in mind. So assuming whoever thinks they knew what their purpose was, assuming you've written it down, I will now move on. So this is where I'm going to now share with you an exercise that, according to me, will help you discover your purpose. And again, for those of you who, in the previous slide, did not write down anything because according to you, don't know what, or you're not sure what your purpose is yet, this may be where this is one method of discovering it. And for those of you who already wrote something down, this is also, you could sort of validate what you wrote down. You could, compare the two later on and see, what makes most sense to you. Can you combine the two, and does it make sense to, pick up a point from here and there, or do you suddenly, after you discover, through this exercise, if this makes more sense? So, I mean, of course, everyone's going to go through this exercise, but Again, I don't want those who wrote it down or, from the previous slide or did not write it down. I don't want you to. That doesn't mean anything. That was, like I said, that was just out of understanding for yourself as to where you stand as of now. Right? So according to me, the most effective way of discovering what your purpose is asking yourself some important questions, right? And I have a few questions here that I would like to go through and like to have you answer. Now, you don't just start writing yet. I'm going to first explain to you what this all is about, and then we're going to continue writing. So basically, what I'm trying to get out of you is three things essentially. So if you look at the center column over here, by the way, can somebody tell me, do you see my mouse moving along with the screen, or do you only see the screen? Do you see where I'm pointing?
Yes, sir, we can see your mouse.
Okay, great. So this center column over here, right, that's essentially what I'm going to have you write down. So first part is your unique skills and interests. Sorry, your unique skills and qualities, right? So in order to arrive at what your unique qualities are, the question you can ask yourself is, what are you good at doing, or who are you good at being? Right? What kind of person you're good at being? The second one is your interests. And in order to arrive at your interests, the question you can ask yourself is, how do you like to express yourself? Or what do you want to do? Or who do you want to be? And the third one is your vision. So whatever your perfect world is, what does that look like, right? So your vision in present tense, as if you were already living in your perfect world. If this doesn't make sense so far, don't worry about it. I'm going to share an example with you, which will help you understand, how to sort of frame your answers. And I decided to get a little personal with you guys over here. So the example I'm about to share is my own, right? So when I did this exercise, uh, and the way I discovered my purpose is exactly how I'm sharing with you. So these are my own answers for each of these questions, right? So unique skills and qualities. So for me, I had creativity, authenticity, and expression, right? So these could answer the question, for example, uh, you know, who are you good at being? I'm good at being an authentic person, or I'm good at being an expressive person, or I am creative, right? So regardless of which of these two questions you choose to answer, um, as long as you arrive at your skills and qualities, that's what we're looking at. The next one, in my interests are to inspire people and to increase awareness. Again, I can say this could be an answer to, what do you want to do? I want to inspire people, right? Or who do you want to be? I want to be a person who spreads awareness. Again, which of these you choose to exactly answer does not matter, as long as you get these written down. The last part, your vision. So in my perfect world, everyone is living in harmony with nature, everyone is being authentic, and everyone is doing what they love, right? So that's kind of how you approach this exercise, and that's how I want you to answer these questions and write down each of these. Now, again, I have over here 2 or 3 unique skills, 1 to 2 interests. I have 3 for the first one. I have 2 for the second one. I have 3 for the third one. You don't have to have as many as I do. Even if you have 1 or 2, that's totally fine. Don't worry about getting as many as I do. Just whatever comes to mind in the most sort of authentic and way. Just try and you know let this be. Let this answer really, ask yourself this question, and let this answer really come from within, and not try and stay away from things that have been taught to you. Again, things that you may have been conditioned to believe. Ignore what you're currently doing. So if you're going to college for a particular degree, or maybe you have certain hobbies, or you take some classes outside of college, extracurricular, whatever it is, right? Ignore all of that. Don't Let's try and not let any of that influence these answers. Let these just come straight from your instinct, your intuition, and that'll be the most authentic way to arrive at your purpose. So this will take a few minutes. Let's say about 4 to 5 minutes, and once you're done, if I guess I can time it in about 4 or 5 minutes, I'll come back on and move on to the next part. Right, maybe another minute or so. So I see a few people have messaged saying they're done. Uh, I hope majority of the group is done. All right, so I see more messages coming in. I guess I will move on, and I'm sure in the next few seconds, whoever's still working on it will be able to finish soon. So moving on to now, how do we use, so you've now written down these categories. Now, how do we use all this information to discover your purpose? So the last part of this, uh, oh, yeah. So now what you're going to ask yourself is, what does the intersection of all of these answers looks like, right? And so essentially what you're going to write down is a combination of all these three answers. And in my case, my example, here's what I have. So I'm going to break it down for you and explain to you how I put this together, and then you can do yours. So my purpose is to leverage my creativity and authentic expression. So that comes from this first part, creativity, and I combine these two, authentic expression, to increase awareness and inspire others, to increase awareness and inspire others. So that comes from the second part, to do what they love and live a harmonious and authentic life. So that comes from this third part of the vision, to do what they love and live an authentic and harmonious life. I hope you were able to follow along. So it's essentially as simple as picking up your three individual pieces and just framing a grammatical sentence, a grammatically correct sentence using all of those three. That's all this is. Don't worry about, again, like I said earlier, mine is, I'll be honest, mine is towards the longer side. My sentence here, chances are if you haven't if you don't have as many smaller pieces as I do, your sentence will be shorter, which is actually perfect. So to the best of your ability, just try and combine the three and form a sentence like that, and there you go, you have your purpose. Again, give you about a minute or so to do that. Right. So once a few more are done, if you can just enter into the chat box, and I'll move forward. This is something, even if it's taking you a bit longer, again, you have everything you need basically to come up with this, so you can even come back to this later on. I see only one is done so far. Okay, so a few more are coming in saying done. Cool. So we're going to move on. And again, if some of you still have this pending, you have all the information you need. You can get to this later on. So uh, one point I'd like to make here is so if some of you may be wondering why does why is it important to include all these three elements, right? The skills and qualities, the interests, as well as the vision, right? Why is it important to include all this to discover your vision? Why can't you rely on just two? And that would be a fair question, right? So, uh, for example, if you oops, if you said why can't I just look at my skills and qualities and maybe interests to derive my purpose, right? Why do I need the vision as part of it? So this diagram over here will help explain this question. So let's look at the left side. So if you take this the top circle, skills and qualities, and the one on the left, interest, right? So say you're good at something, you have certain qualities, and you're interested in it, uh, but maybe there's no vision that you're working towards. You could still do it, but you may not end up making money, and at some point you will need some money to get by, right? So uh, that may not be the most ideal situation. Similarly, if you're interested in something and you have a vision that you're working towards, or maybe there's some sort of an impact that you want to have on the world, but what if you're not really good at it? What if it's not a skill that you possess, right? You may not be able to do it well, and in that particular case, eventually, frustration will kick in, and you might even lose interest, right, which you had at the beginning. And the last part is if you're, and this is where I was for sure, and this is where I think majority of the world that walks a very sort of traditional standard path, which they're not very consciously aware of. I think this is where most people sit, is when you might be good at something, and you might have a vision that you're working towards, but if you're not interested in it, obviously you're not going to enjoy doing it, right? So in my case, uh, so even though I hated what I used to do at work, right, I never connected with that field of work. It was never my interest. It wasn't a passion at all. I was still good at it. I was a good employee. I made myself uh, learn the things that I was expected to learn. My clients were really happy with me. My project managers, my seniors, all of them, they were happy with me, with my work. I just wasn't. So I was good at it. I just wasn't interested in. And I was definitely living someone's vision. It wasn't my own, but maybe it was my own. The owner of my company, whether it's the CEO or the clients that I used to work for. Right? It was collectively I was working towards someone's vision. It was just not mine. So I definitely didn't enjoy doing it. Right. So when you pick just two out of these three, there's going to be something lacking, right? There are obviously exceptions, and one that I can share is, for example, if you look at skills and qualities and interests. So say you're a really good singer. Meaning you're good at singing, or say dancing. You're good at singing or dancing, and you're actually interested in it. Like you want to become a singer or a dancer. Uh, if you're really good at it, you play your cards right. If luck favors you, and if you truly believe that you could make something out of your talent, you could become a superstar, and you probably make a lot of money, right? So that part may not apply to you. So in that case, you don't really have to have a vision, because you're say, oh, I'm good at singing, and I enjoy singing, so I want to become a singer. So it's not like you're going to say, in my perfect world, you know everyone is okay listening to my voice, or everyone is okay watching me dance. That's not a vision you would write down. But anyway, in that case, you're anyway a creative person. You're going for a creative pursuit. So there are, of course, those kind of exceptions, but for the most part, you want to be in this middle intersection over here, right, where there's a little bit of all three, and that's where the ideal version of each of us should be sitting. That's where each of our purpose should arise from, with a little bit, with a small element of all these three combined. So that's what this sort of diagram is all about. And just to sort of close out this exercise, so I did this in 2017 after I gave up my IT career, and at the time I was, because I was not doing anything, so I was far away from what my purpose suggests, right? I was not doing anything remotely close to it, and because I wasn't, this sort of fear and doubt started to kick in, and I started to question my own answers. Right, the examples that I showed you, things like authenticity and expression, self-awareness and inspire. I want to inspire people. So that negative self-talk that we all have, that sort of kicked in, and it asked me that, what's wrong with you? You're not doing anything. Like you don't have a job. You're not earning money. Yet here you are thinking that you want to inspire people. Like, how are you going to do that, right? So that part of me kicked in. But besides that negative voice, there was something that felt right, right? There was something that felt like, okay, yes, I know I'm not doing anything close to this at the moment, but if this is what organically emerged, if this is a question I asked myself, and I did not allow any external conditioning to influence my answers, then that means this came from truly from the heart, from my subconscious mind. So that this must have some meaning, right? So it felt right. And that's when I realized it immediately, it became clear to me why the previous 15 years, which is 5 years of college and about 10 odd years of work, why was I so unhappy, right, throughout that period? Because this purpose rang a bell. It made me feel a certain way that I'd never felt before. Just literally just coming up with that one sentence made me feel a certain way. And so the only option I gave myself was to, at least in my mind, I wasn't in reality living it yet. At least in my mind, start to think about this purpose as literally being real for me. That I started to live that purpose in my mind, and eventually it became reality. And here we are today, right? What I'm doing as we speak. I'm sitting in front of, I don't know, 70, 80, 90 of you, sharing my story and focusing it around self-awareness, and hopefully it'll inspire some of you. And you know, so in some way, I'm living my purpose even during this discussion, right? So that's why I mentioned that last point at the bottom over there. Following your purpose is really not limited just to your career or your profession. So what I mean by that is, uh, so just because I say I've identified my purpose to be, inspiring people and spreading awareness, and say I conduct a bunch of workshops. So that doesn't mean that when I step out of that workshop, my work is done, right? That's not really my job, but if I've conducted a workshop, I am earning a little bit of money. So just because now I'm out of it, so that it's um, I don't see myself stepping out of that person, even though I'm not conducting a workshop, or even though I'm not here in front of you conducting a seminar, or even though I'm not creating art and putting it up on my social media to share with the world, right? Even when I'm just going about my day-to-day life, when I'm at home, when I'm having conversations with my parents or my family or friends, if I see my parents, if I have a conversation and they say or do something out of lack of awareness, if I truly live my purpose, it is then my responsibility to jump in and make them aware that they're coming from a lack of awareness, and that's when I know I'm truly living my purpose. I'm not earning money to have that discussion with my parents. I'm not earning money if I intervene and jump in a conversation with a friend and saying, no, what you said is not right. You're not aware of who you're being. So living your purpose is really not only about, okay, if my purpose is XYZ, when I go to the office or when I go to work, I'm going to live my purpose there, and when I step out of it, I can be whoever I want to be. No, that's not being authentic with yourself. And that's the point I want you to drive home here. Um, so moving on to self-awareness, why do I believe self-awareness is so critical? Right? So I've come to realize that at the core of everything, all individual aspects of our lives, be it career, finances, relationships, your health, even just something as simple as your hobbies and interests. I think when you think of growth and development in any of these fields, self-awareness is at the absolute core of any of this, right? When you become truly aware of yourself, that's when you're really able to grow and progress in any of these fields. Without self-awareness, it's not sustainable, or maybe it's not authentic, or it's not unhealthy. So that's why I think it's at the absolute center of any of this. Um, it helps you understand and manage your emotions. I think I was saying earlier on during the introduction, uh, we grow up in this very default sort of setting, and we're not aware of we're not aware of our core state. We know things like, I like this, I don't like it. Right? We've been taught throughout. I have been taught. I would, we've been taught to brush our emotions aside. Or you're feeling sad, you should not be feeling sad. You're angry, don't be angry. Why are you crying? Why are you? So we tend to, over a period of time, we tend to condition ourselves to believe that we're not supposed to feel all these emotions, right? Especially the heavy emotions. Um, so we teach ourselves these things over a long period of time, and we lose touch with our emotions. And I'm a prime example of that. So once you become more self-aware, once you really start to get more in touch with your emotions, and more you start to understand why you feel a certain way, right? What is it that what are your fears? What stresses you out? What makes you anxious? Or even on the opposite side, even on the healthy emotion, right? What is it that really excites you? What are your passions? Why do you feel excited about a certain thing? What reaction does your body have to these feelings? Right? All of these things. This is all part of self-awareness. So it really helps you understand and manage those in a much better way. Uh, Helps identify and heal childhood conditioning and trauma. Again, relating to the same point. So this is a big one for me because I was able to bring a lot of my childhood conditioning to the surface and become conscious of them, uh, just because I became self-aware. Before this, I had no idea why I react to certain things the way I do. I had no idea why I believe the things that I believe. Right. So it was through my self-discovery and my journey of self-awareness that I started to understand. If I've been made to think, if I've been taught to believe a certain way about, what defines success, what is failure, what is this idea of achieving perfection in everything, how do we look at money, how do we look at relationships, everything. We're all sort of part of a default pattern, and we start believing these things, but we never really uncover them until you become self-aware. So that's a really powerful one, in my opinion, and because I've personally experienced. Uh, Significantly improves relationship with the nature and planets. So there's a specific reason why I've mentioned nature and planets separately. While you could say they are the same thing, when I think of nature, I don't only think of forests and beaches and mountains and whatnot. Right? Yes, of course that is nature, but I'm part of nature. You're part of nature. Right? We're all natural beings. So I truly believe that nature is not. We're not excluded from it. We're we're all part of it. And so when I say improves relationship with nature, I am essentially talking about self-awareness. Really brings in this aspect of one-to-one, connectedness, uh, whether that's human to human, whether that's human to animals, human to plants, human to just the environment, right? You tend to become, and I've noticed this about myself as well in the last couple of years. You tend to become more aware of your consumption, your wastage habits. You like, to what extent am I contributing to, the environment deteriorating? I mean, look around what's happening around us in the world. Right? This is a direct result of humanity supremely abusing the planet over the last few decades. Right? So what is my contribution to that, and how can I, do better? Right? So all of that is part of self-awareness. And the last one is just sort of I guess, an after effect of when you start to live all these other things. You, by default, you become that, what they call the best version of yourself, and you literally show up in the world every day as a better human being when you start to incorporate all of this in your life. So that's what that last point there is. Awesome. So the third exercise, again, is a very quick one, like the first one. So the purpose discovery exercise that we just went through, it probably made you feel a certain way, right? When you did that exercise, uh, some of you may have felt excited. You just discovered something new. Some of you may have suddenly felt some doubt, especially those who thought that they know their purpose, and maybe something else came up, right? So on the left over here, you'll see a few, and these are all examples. This is definitely, by no means this is an exhaustive list. There are many, many more emotions, obviously. These are just some examples. So these are the lighter emotions on the left. On the right, slightly heavier emotions. I just threw in one sort of neutral one over here. So you could have felt any of this. Again, it's not, one is not better than the other. It's just a feeling that was evoked, and it's completely okay whether you felt optimistic or you were excited or you were confused. It's all okay, right? There's no right or wrong. So again, similar to the first exercise, what color represents your feeling now? And I'll point out again two things this time. It does not have to be same as the first one, or it does not have to be different. It does not have to be a favorite color again. So whatever first came to mind, whether it's the same, whether it's different, just write that down. So this is a very quick one. I'm going to assume you guys already have it. So I will move on. So here's where I have, now that you've done this color exercise twice. This is what reveals. Uh, so each color relates to a certain set of emotions, right? So what I have over here, under each color, you'll see, like on top, you'll see like this larger group of emotions listed over here, and at the bottom you'll see a couple more. So the ones on top, the larger chunk, those are more of the I guess the positive emotions and traits, and the ones at the bottom are on the sort of negative, heavy side, right? Um, we are a little bit, short of time, so I won't spend too long here. If you want, I'll just wait a few seconds. If you want to jot down just a couple of them that based on the colors that you pick, I'll let you do that in a few seconds. But all this information is available on the internet. You can literally go and search for, for example, yellow. Like what emotions does the color yellow represent? You'll come across a bunch of articles on color theory and color psychology, and you can study about this at your own time later on. But that's essentially what these colors represent. So to kind of make sense of all of this, right? Let's analyze what this could mean for you. So some questions to ask are: did you pick the same color both times, or was it different? Right? Some of you obviously may have picked the same one. Hopefully, that's what occurred to you. Hopefully, you didn't, purposely change it to be the same. So some of you may have picked the same, some may have different, based on your discovery, meaning of your purpose, as well as the feeling that it evoked. What could this mean for you, right? Can you find a link between this discovery and the emotions you were drawn to? Meaning, so you discovered your purpose, it evoked a certain emotion, and then I did the color exercise again. So, for example, again, taking the hypothetical, if you pick yellow, um, do these emotions, do they sort of align with the emotion that you felt when you discovered your purpose, or is it something different, right? That's one question to ask. Another question to ask is, are you currently feeling these emotions, or are you striving to get to a state where you might feel them? What do I mean by that? Again, taking yellow as an example, right? So the color yellow may have been on top of your, in your consciousness, either because you're already feeling these states, meaning you're already feeling some sort of joy, happiness, positivity, inspiration, whatever, or you might be in a different state, but you're striving to get to a place where you might feel these emotions, right? So that it could be either or. So that's something to think about for yourself, what that might mean. And again, this is something you can do at your own time later on. Just to wrap up, so I know we have a little over 2.5 minutes. This is my last slide. Hopefully I'll be able to finish, and then I guess we can come back on for the Q&A. So why did I structure this conversation the way I did? So I wanted to, like I said earlier, I wanted to make this about you. I didn't want to just, put my story out there and be like, okay, this is where I come from. This is what, I moved from technology to something more creative. I wanted you to be able to relate to where I come from, literally from a place of, being lost and confused and having no idea, what I'm doing, to somehow starting to figure out what I want to do, because that is relatable for a lot of people, right? So that's why I kind of approached it from that perspective. Why did I choose purpose and self-awareness as the central element? So you guys are now at a very, very sort of crucial, significant crossroad in your life, right? You're anywhere between first to third year of college. In the very near future, you're going to step out into what we consider the real world. Except in your case, the world just got a lot more real already while you're still in college. If you look around the current situation, it's of course possibly the scariest situation anyone alive today has ever been in. But I think it's also the most exciting for you guys, for your generation, because it's the first time in human history where things are starting to lose meaning the way we had defined them, right? Well, things that we were so fixed on, things that we had, whether it was to do with, again, I keep bringing these things up: career, relationships, humanity, how we treat the planet. Everything is changing. Right? How we function on a day-to-day basis is already changing. But I'm going to go out there and make a prediction that what we've seen change in the last 6 to 8 months is probably nothing compared to what's coming in the next 12 to 18 months. I'm just going to throw it out there. And I think that's the most exciting part is you're entering a world full of new opportunities, and there's so much there to explore that we've never had before. None of us have had that before, right? So that's why I believe that's a very exciting time. I know we have a few seconds. I'm just going to finish off this last part and we'll come back on. And I want you to make purposeful choices, meaningful choices, and I want you to be aware of the choices that you're making, the reasons that you're making these choices, right? So, for example, if you chose to, come to Neswadia College for some degree related to business or commerce, I want you to be aware of the fact that did you make this choice for yourself because you're interested in this, or are you here because it was somehow you were made to believe that business or a degree in business will somehow be beneficial for you, right? So that's something to think about, and I want you to be aware of, fully as aware as you can of those choices and those decisions that you make, not just